1964, South Australia changed its constitution, removed the sovereignty from the people to the Parliament. Go online, look at their constitution, you'll see exactly when they did it. Victoria, 1975, if you looked at my recent videos, I put it on there, attacking an Assistant Commissioner of Police in Victoria because of his spineless, gutless attitude to handcuffing a pregnant woman. What an idiot. So that drove me up the wall. You can't do that. But, as I said then, 1975, Victoria removed its constitution totally and replaced it with another one. So Victoria doesn't exist. So you've got Western Australia, Queensland, South Australia, and Victoria. So you've got 2 states left. But do you? No, because they've modified their constitutions to comply with the other ones. So we don't have any lawful states. Now we come to 1979. Every single state parliament was a Labor parliament. So in 1979, they all passed legislation to put in place a system of local government, a complete new form of government. It's not the 3rd tier. You've got 3 tiers. Executive, legislature, judicature. Page 701 gives you the diagram that shows you exactly what it is. It's there for you to look at. It says the Commonwealth, quasi-sovereign. Underneath it, the Constitution. Because those two go together to form the sovereignty of the people over the Parliament. That's how it works, they go together. Because it's the will of the people expressed by referendum as to how they want to be governed and how the Parliament will govern them as a legislature, which is your 3 tiers. That's what that section means. Then it comes down and it says Federal Parliament. Federal Parliament is your executive, legislature and judicature, which is the Governor General, and his duties are in section 61 to 68 of the Constitution. That's his duties. Section 68 says he's in charge of the military. Not the government, not the Parliament, the Governor General is. Why? Because he's exercising the authority of the Crown in one of the Queen's colonies, being the Commonwealth of Australia. And people say, no, that's not true.
Question.
Yes?
Now that you got onto that point, I'd like to know how the Governor General is exercising the power of the monarch.
Yes.
But you said that only the monarch can, much earlier, you said only the monarch can pass certain things.
That's why I said certain laws have to be reserved to Her Majesty for her signature. That's correct.
And in those cases, the Governor General has no input into that.
That's correct. All he does is he takes it and sends it to the monarch to sign or
Because I noticed Kim Beazley's signing a lot of things in the Gazette lately. A lot of things.
Kim Beazley, I don't attack person's religion. He's a level 33 Mason, as is Yap Yap McGowan, and he's the 33rd Governor of Western Australia. Six. Now you understand why he was put there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Scott Morrison, when he was sworn in, come on, oh look, I'm in Hillsong, praise the Lord, and prayed over Australia, you hypocrite. He is not a born-again Christian, he's a born-again Freemason. And he has to be very high up because he's in the highest position in the Liberal Party. Anyone who thinks that's not the case is living in La La Land. Every high-ranking politician in this country is a Freemason. Some who are down a little bit are Fabians, Rhodes Scholars, you see those? They're all in groups. International Rotary, International Lions, Freemasonry, Fabianism, Druids, Buffaloes, Zionists, Scouts, Guides, and several others. Go down to Barrack Street, Jetty, and have a look at the pyramid that ends in the point in the middle of the cockroach, the bell tower. I call it a cockroach, but it looks more like one. Right up one side, it gives you a list of all those people. The other side, it gives you a list of all the kids at that time. Why? Because they're all controlled by pedophilia. And I'm not going to get in how they do it, because I know how they do it, but they're all controlled by pedophilia. That's why they do what they're told. You can understand this is not a nice little country when you really get into it. You go to our local vehicle examiner in Geraldton, as I pointed out to his brother-in-law, I said, well, what's he got that owl sitting up there for? International symbol of pedophilia. He probably is a pedophile. I know he's an arrogant little ratbag to deal with, but that's where all this stuff comes out. But if you go to the northeastern corner of Government House, I worked there in guard duty on night shift, and we had to check the whole building, including all the footings all the time, for explosive and interference. There was no Freemason symbol on the northeastern corner. There is now, engraved into the sandstone. You go outside the Supreme Court to the southeastern corner, and there's a monument to Freemasonry there. You go to the entrance to Supreme Court Gardens, and there's a pentagram on the ground with a pyramid in the middle. You go to King's Park, and you've got an obelisk sitting there. An obelisk is an erect penis. People don't like that, but that's exactly what it is.
A lot of
That's
people
what the
will say
bell
that.
tower is too.
People in the
Penis
lower
with
levels
labia.
don't know what's going on.
The people in the lower levels don't, but if you go into the Vatican,
Looks quite essential.
well, I don't get involved in slandering people's religion, but that is a vagina, and that's an erect penis. And they've got an all of our war memorials why. They won't tell you, but I will tell you, over, you got, is that Craig? I want to wipe that off.
What is that?
Whereabouts did you say that it is in Kingsmouth?
King's Park, that's a war memorial.
Oh, there's all places to put it.
Yeah, well, you go south of Geraldton through Port Denison, and it says, where you turn left to go to Brand Highway, it says obelisk in front. And you go out there, there's a huge big obelisk. It's there for a reason. They're not there just because people like those structures.
Yeah, Wayne, it's on all our war memorials.
It's on all your war memorials. It's on about every 50 metres all the way around the roads in Kings Park, two little ones.
Same principles are
And if you go to
incorporated in
every
the
high
Bell
street
Tower.
and every
So
suburb,
what?
you'll see as well.
Same principles are incorporated in the Bell Tower.
Yep, in the bell tower, yeah. Yeah, that's why I call it the cockroach. But at the end of the day, people have to wake up to the symbolism used. And then how you check whether ScoMo is a Mason is very, very simple. What oath did he take to the Queen of Australia? Why? Who's the Queen of Australia? The Queen of Australia is actually, no,
Whitlam, wasn't it?
Got Whitlam.
No, Margaret Whitlam was gone.
No.
He was the king.
No, he's not.
So he was the president, wasn't he?
He changed the Royal Styles and Titles Act and created the Queen of Australia. He signed as the Queen of Australia. He is the Queen because the person who sacked him would be the king, because that's his boyfriend. Now, we're in a homosexual relationship. If you don't like what I'm saying, it's all there. Go and look at it. What I'm telling you is the truth. Then you start to realise what's going on. They then passed 300 laws to remove the power of the Governor-General and the governors of each state. And they changed all the legislation and made the oath to the Queen of Australia. Now, when I filed documents against the Governor-General and Scott Morrison and seized lawfully under Clause 61 of Magna Carta the three lawful tiers of government, they swore the new Governor-General in, and he swore the correct oath. Then he turned on the Australian people and gave permission for Susan Kiefel, the so-called Chief Justice, to swear all the politicians in, swearing the oath of allegiance to the Queen of Australia. The Australian Bulldust Club, ABC, covered it up because they said, oh, we got breaking news. And they brought this guy on who'd written some book about some nonsense. And that was breaking news, so you didn't get to see the swearing in ceremonies. But you can actually go into their website and you can see what each of them swore to the Queen of Australia. Now, the reason Scott Morrison cannot swear the oath in our constitution, because an oath in British law is a covenant to uphold the Protestant faith and the King James Bible and the Church of England.
Yep.
And he can't do it, which proves he's sworn a blood oath to Satan under level 7 and above Freemasonry.
Yep.
It's their religion. I never attack their religion. I make a point of that because they can get you on that. But I openly attack them on Facebook and say that's your religion. You can do it, but you're wrong because you're outside our system. We need, as a people, to rise up and get in the face of our politicians and demand they serve us, not their parties. The last video I did was to remove myself from the GAP party.
Yep.
Because I joined them on the condition they didn't register. And then Cullerton told me he had registered it behind my back. So I said, I'm not running for Parliament and I'm not having anything to do with your party. He tried to talk me into it and I said, no, it's not going to happen. I set principles where I abide by the law 100%, as much as I can. Sometimes you do silly things like put your foot down too hard. I'm guilty of that several times. But at the end of the day, I will not compromise our constitution and the people's law. Because I'm teaching it for a reason, so people will be aware of it, so they can stand up to these people and say, this is our law, this is what it says, do what you're told. Now, all this COVID-19 crap, you go to clause 8 of your constitution, and it states, when the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. The boundaries are borders. States can't have any boundaries. They can't have borders. Not hard borders, because they don't exist in law. About 4 videos back I said we have an imaginary line which is a division between each section of this country, because each section is divided into states. Who are the states? We are. We, the people, we are. So when you look at that, then you go to section 69 of the Constitution. And I'll read that section because you need to be aware that it kicks out their so-called little thing that they got going at present for quarantine. I've got that many flags, I get rid of the flags to see what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's actually a good read, that section.
Yeah. So anybody who decides they want my mind, you can have it. And I will sit down here and listen to you.
I definitely understand it.
On a date or dates to be proclaimed by the Governor-General after the establishment of the Commonwealth, the following departments of the public service in each state shall become transferred to the Commonwealth: post, telegraphs and telephones, naval and military defence, lighthouse, light ships, beacons and buoys, and quarantine. So where do the states get off setting up quarantine? They can't. Every time they do, that's an act of treason against the people. You're here to service, according to our constitution. You don't get to do what you want. You get to do what we've authorised you to do. Now, when you go to the boundaries, there is a boundary in the constitution. 12 nautical miles off the coast of this country is a boundary set. That's the only boundary, except for one, when you buy land. Now, if you apply the Boundaries Act against the Local Government Act, you'll start to bring out the cobwebs of the system and break it down, because your property is covered by a boundary. How did they get around that boundary? It was very, very simple. In the 60s, if you're as old as me, or can remember that back that far, you find that they changed their currency from pounds, shillings and pence. That's the only lawful currency of this country. They changed their measurements from imperial to metric. and that removed our boundaries. But did it? No, it didn't. It didn't. What they did is they set a boundary in the metric measurement 2 millimetres inside your boundary and said, you hold your land in fee simple, there's your boundary, but we got control of it under the Crown. But they didn't say it straight away. They let us think for years you're buying your land in fee simple, alienated from the Crown, and you own it, but you don't. Anybody who thinks they own their land doesn't. You paid for it? Yes, I paid for mine cash. And I got a letter from Landgate when I got into the council last year. They said, you own all aspects of ownership on your land except for the fact the Crown still owns it. It's alienated from the Crown. How can they still own it? Because they have that measurement, that boundary inside yours. You see how cunning little ratbags are? But they went better than that. They were putting your land into joint tenants and tenants in common in an estate in fee simple. 5 years later, they changed one letter. You were tenants in common or joint tenants on an estate in fee simple. They just took your land off you.
From in to on.
In to on. One letter. An I to an O, and they got it. Now, where is your land? Well, we put out a video, what was it, last year or the beginning of this year, in relation to the 18 companies in America
Last year.
The reason we did that, so people would realise where your land is, who owns it. It was after the 7th of January 2019 when I seized everything under Clause 61 of Magna Carta. The reason I did that, because everything in this country, you, me, the tables, the cupboards, the buildings, everything, your kids, your working life, all belongs to 18 companies. Who owns those companies? Go into the US Securities and Exchange Commission, the Commonwealth of Australia Proprietary Limited. It's registered there, the number is 0000805157. That owns a company, a trading company, Commonwealth of Australia LLC, registered in Delaware, District of Columbia, by the lovely little specimens there. Now, who owns everything here? Who owns those companies? That trading company does. It's registered in America under their Foreign Trading Act, that act we had. What was that called again? I asked you.
Dun and Bradstreet.
Which?
Dun and Bradstreet.
Yeah. No, that was the ownership. They put the listing on the companies. It was to do with a registration of American Securities Act.
Exchange.
And that registers all foreign companies trading as governments of the world. Registered there. Something we're hoping Trump is going to wipe out. And it looks like he is. We need it wiped out, because if he wipes that out, we get everything back. But we owned it all back since the 7th of January last year. Do we have the authority to seize it? Yes. I'm a sworn officer of the Crown, as this gentleman is over here. Once we swear that oath, we carry it and hold it till we die as a Commonwealth public officer. I went further and I applied to England and got sworn in as a Commonwealth public official. Just gives you that little bit more edge when you're dealing with judges and magistrates. You can get in their face and cheek them up a bit and get away with it. But what you've got to look at then, it gives you anybody, we are all subjects of a majesty. We are not sovereign citizens. That's a nonsense. You can't be sovereign and a citizen. It's an oxymoron. Both are the same. But we are subjects of a majesty. We're born that way. If you come into this country from anywhere in the British Empire, you emigrate because you are a subject of a majesty. This is a self-governing colony under Clause 8. It says when the Commonwealth comes into existence, it comes into existence as a self-governing colony of England. And we remain Her Majesty's subjects. When you immigrate from a foreign country, foreign to the British Empire. But you must you come in as an alien under 51, don't know anyway, just before immigration, and it states to become a citizen of this country, because the Constitution has constitutional citizenry, but you're not a citizen. You're a subject of the Crown. You worked that out, I didn't put it together, they did. But what it actually means is they can't prohibit you then voting, running for Parliament. You've got to be here 5 years, same as immigration. And then you become a Commonwealth citizen and you become a subject of the Queen through that oath. Because all we are is a colony of England until we come, yes.
If someone comes from the UK
Yep.
and they immigrate here and then they pay all this money for to become Australian citizen as they put it.
Yep.
They shouldn't technically have to do it because they're already part of the colony.
Yeah, they might be.
That's it. If you immigrate, you can't immigrate. Well, what they're saying is you've got to immigrate.
I know, but that's what I'm saying, you're already.
It's just another one of their lies.
Yeah.
See, when you look at the 1973 Act, when they did all their little new laws, they changed the Immigration Act and backdated it back to 1948. And when you go to that 48 Act and you look at it, then that's when your immigration comes in, because you have to be naturalised as a British subject to be a citizen of the Commonwealth. Not the Commonwealth of Australia, the Commonwealth of Britain. Now, and it might sound complicated, but it is to a degree.
It just seems crazy, when people pay all this money, doesn't matter where you come from, if you're coming in here legally, you pay all this money to become first a permanent resident and then they call it Australian citizen, and you're paying money for something you already are.
Yes.
I know that, but I'm just saying, technically they're just being.
I know what it's like. We had to pay big time for my wife to come in from Indonesia.
I've got friends that come from UK
And
and they have to pay megabucks just to
Yeah.
say that they're Australian. Right?
Yeah.
And one of my friends is a resident, she said, well, they kicked me out. I said, well, technically they can't. It's not like you've done anything wrong, you're doing it at little service sector.
well, see, the big problem is the 1999 referendum for republic. The High Court was so convinced that they were going to get their republic, and so was the Federal Parliament. They did a lot of things. They changed the Constitution for their own, which is what I call the mucus one. It's got the same value.
Green thing.
The green thing, yeah, same colour as mucus too, right? I get it. But at the end of the day, it has the same value, none. Now, what they did is they put through a case through the High Court in relation, it was Sue versus Hill. If you wind back through my videos, I went back through that case and pointed out all the breaches of the Constitution, because the Republic wasn't granted and we weren't even going to give it to them. We couldn't anyway. We can't have a Republic. We have to actually beg the Queen to give us permission to have a referendum to wipe out our Constitution, because it's indissoluble. So we have to separate from England as a colony and become an independent nation and then apply to establish a republic. They're saying you can establish a republic as soon as the Queen dies.
Yeah.
But
Our biggest problem is we've got a lot of immigrants who don't understand.
yeah, because
And that's what they're playing on.
yeah, since 1975 they haven't taught the Constitution in our school. That was another one of the laws got with them, Rory.
They have started again, but because I work in schools as library officer, so I've pulled out some of those books.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those ones, there's so much information missing in there, it's not funny.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what they're actually doing.
Oh, there's a lot of information in that Constitution, it's not funny either.
Yeah.
I mean, I can speed read, and it took me 9.5 hours to read it the first time.
Mm.
Then I went back, and now I'm still finding things that I never picked up in all the times I've read it. You'll be sitting there reading it, and something will click in your mind and say, so you go back to a different section and go, holy mackerel. That changes the whole aspect of that section of the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's why I say when people ask me, they say, "Oh, you reckon you know everything about the Constitution?" I said, "The magistrate, you're a liar. I never said that. What I do say, I have learnt the Constitution since I think 1971 until now. That's a long time and it's a lot of book, but I've learnt a lot, but I never know the lot. The ability, I mean, the 55,000 pages of Hansard, there's no way on God's earth I'm ever going to get to read that. Not even when I was 16 and started again, I wouldn't even attempt to, because you get bogged down in illegal crap.
I guess your trick is to know where to go to look for it. That's.
Yeah, well, the easiest way is to go on the Quick and Current, because what they did is they listed section 1 to 128, then they went back and they put section 1 and they put all the sections of Hansard that's relevant to the actual cementing in of that section into the Constitution there for you to understand. So you have their interpretation of what it means, which is what that book's about. But then you have clowns come out and say, "Oh yes, but Queen Victoria allowed us to remove all the pieces out of the state constitution." Well, that's all right, but I don't believe in the time machine, so how else did they get all the sections signed by Queen Victoria? Because it says Victoria this, removed by Victoria that, Victoria Act this, in the state constitution. You get a copy out of their printers and you'll find that that's exactly what it says. So they must have gone back in the time machine and got Queen Victoria to sign off on it all. Yeah, good luck with that, idiots. They also tell you can't go to the Privy Council. Yeah, you can. In England, because they went into the European Common Market, they absorbed the Privy Council into the High Court of England, which we discovered when Cullerton filed into the Privy Council. It's still there. It's still there. How do we get in it? Under section 73(5) or 75(5). I've never bothered to look that up, I should have. It says we have access to the Privy Council under a law passed by Queen Victoria. It's Victoria 28 and 29. And it states that in the Constitution. So we have access, and that can't be removed. One of the things Queen Victoria put in place when they discovered that all colonies and the parliaments were passing all these laws to circumvent the Constitution, she cemented in place our right to go to the Privy Council. We don't even have to go to the High Court. We can go from any court of a state. It's stated in there we can, and that is a right.
So we used to have Privy Council here until I think it was it Hawke or Whitlam?
We didn't have Privy Council. We had grand juries under Section
I
80.
We had a Privy Council, but
Well, it is a kind, but we actually have the King's Bench or Queen's Bench in the High Court, and you can call the King's Bench under the Supreme Court of a state under a judge who's appointed to hear federal cases in federal jurisdiction. That's explained in Chapter 3 of the Constitution. It's something, I don't want to get into the courts very heavy because people will get confused. They need to know their rights. And the rights is the Constitution doesn't award an authority, it's removed. They haven't got it. We need to understand that. It's a complex book, but you can understand it.
I know, I bought it from you, and sometimes I can't work out which is the clause and which is the section. I think, well, that's not what it means. I've got to go back and find the other bit.
Well, actually, if you go into the Government Gazette, was gazetted in 1890, 1898, 99, 99, just after it was proclaimed. If you go into there is, I've actually got a copy at home, and I'll look to get those people to print a copy of that too.
Okay.
I've actually got it in the car, but it's no point bringing it in here now. That helps you, because it's in big print, to read all of that. Then you can go back and read all the Hansard that goes with it to prove it. So people say, how can I understand the Constitution? It's simple. Get it from 1 to 128. Kapakaza, isn't it? Is it Paul Kapakaza on Facebook? He sells for $20 a copy of that.
Yeah, that's right.
You've seen that one he sells with a bow?
I've actually thought of getting a few people that
Well, that's good from the point of view, you learn section 1 through 128, then you can go back and use your constitution and use the Hansard to show how it works according to the people who interpreted it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to go back there, because otherwise you're going to get continually confused with what's in it.
Yeah.
And it can be confusing.
And it's particularly someone who's just trying to realise that that's the way they don't understand things.
Yeah.
It's simpler, and I was actually going to get it from a problem on the internet.
Oh yeah, you can have some fun. I do.
Yeah.
And I lay awake at night going through it all in my head, and my wife says, "Stop thinking, go to sleep." Not. Wait until she goes to sleep and go back to thinking again. Any more questions?
It's likewise, we're indissoluble, but
Yep.
also the states are indissoluble as well when you read the book. So all this junk about having another referendum and seceding from the rest of the country, unless all the other states agree, we can't go anywhere.
How do you dissolve a federation that's established under one document? And that's a letter paper. You can't.
Yeah.
It's a nonsense.
Yeah.
But Mark McGowan is clutching at straws. But I attacked Mark McGowan last year on the HMA of Sydney, because every politician or every high up in all the political parties have known it's about 55 metres off the coast of Steep Point. It was blown up by the Japanese. They put a manned submarine straight into the front of it. It's got a 10 feet diameter hole in it, and it was blown in halves in 2004. I got all this from a Navy intelligence guy, but that Navy intelligence guy went to Shane Van Stein, McKim, the CEO of the Geraldton Shire. He went to McGowan and all those, because in Steep Point they dragged 800 bodies from the water and buried them in the sand hills. This is what is being concealed from the public. I put it out on a post, Facebook, made sure it disappeared pretty quick, but at the end of the day, it's a fact. And the political parties knew it. Alana McTiernan, she was the Minister for the Environment in 2004 when the Federal Parliament ordered the shutdown of all the radar right across down the west coast of Western Australia, so the English Navy could come in, blow the ship in halves and take the 400 tonnes of Singapore gold out of it, which is what they've been concealing all this time. This is all fact. Now, go and have a look at your law, federal law. That is a Category 1 crime to conceal where the ship is. It's a Category 1 crime to steal another country's gold during a wartime, which is exactly what the Japanese did. People don't understand that Sydney was full of some pretty gutsy people. They went up against the German ship. How did they do it? They powered around, come alongside it,